Are you interested in effortlessly growing your Bitcoin portfolio? I sure am. The Bitcoin credit card by Gemini earns you Bitcoin back on every purchase. Use it like any credit card. Buy lunch, gas, or your weekly groceries, and you'll earn up to 4% back instantly in Bitcoin or one of over 50 other cryptos straight to your account. All that with no annual fee. And right now, you can grab a $200 Bitcoin welcome bonus. It's the easiest way to start building your Bitcoin stack. Go to Gemini.com/card to learn more. Terms apply. See the link in the description for more information regarding rates and fees.
A warm and friendly hello! Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We've got an excellent podcast for you as we're going to be joined in a few minutes by one of our good friends, Rocco Miller. He does a tremendous job over at Bracketeer.org. He also does great work with Basket Under Review and the Field of 68. We're going to talk with him about the big news that we saw over the weekend, the fact that Tyon Grant-Foster is not going to be eligible for Gonzaga, what that means for them, sort of their outlook. Could we be seeing a few other situations where players are waiting for waivers and they get denied, as this one was a little bit of a unique one? We'll get into the nooks and crannies of that with Rocco. Additionally, he does an amazing job of taking a look at all things college basketball. He does a major show over at the Field of 68, so we'll talk about some of the teams that he's feeling bullish/bearish on as well. And then additionally, we're going to talk with him about these exhibition results. Does he make a lot out of them? Does he make a little bit out of them? Does he make nothing out of them whatsoever? So we've got a lot to talk about with our good friend Rocco. If you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of two ways we'll fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, Larzium, naming does not matter, so as per usual, please send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Well, I did not get in any Twitter/X questions today. Everything is powered by EdgeBoost. EdgeBoost is making sure that bettors are able to have access to their funds whenever and wherever. With EdgeBoost, 100% of gambling transactions do get approved. You can cash back rewards as you use EdgeBoost as well. And when you go to EdgeBoost.bet, make sure you put in that promo code of Greg, G-R-E-G. That'll get you a dollar for dollar match on your first deposit up to $25. Now let's chat it up with our good friend Rocco, who is doing such an amazing job getting us all set for the upcoming college basketball season. You're able to follow him on Twitter/X at Rocco Miller, his first and last name, the number 8 altogether. And Rocco, it's always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Less than 2 weeks away from tip-off. How we feeling?
Oh, I am feeling amazing. The wait has been long. It has been arduous, but we are nearly there. But the wait for Tyon Grant-Foster, it appears as though it's unfortunately going to be forever, as over the weekend, we found out that his waiver was denied by the NCAA, and certainly that is going to be rough for this Gonzaga team moving forward. But what do you make out of the whole ordeal, and how do you take a look at Gonzaga moving forward? Because I still have them atop the WCC. It wasn't a slam dunk that he was going to be able to get the waiver, but still, that is a pretty big loss considering how versatile he was over at Grand Canyon last year.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting situation, that's for sure. You know, if you look at it reasonably, you see here's a guy in a very unique situation, obviously looking to take advantage of the JUCO rule a little bit as well, but had the two near-death experiences. Obviously, in those years, did not play or only played limited action. He's really only played over the however many years it's been. He's only played 3 full seasons. So you just think from a reasonable standpoint, this should be a waiver certainly worth approving, especially if you look at his personal situation. The story's not over, Greg, because there is, I believe, an injunction hearing coming on Thursday, the 23rd, later this week in Spokane County. And he can play if Spokane County gives him the injunction until the NCAA responds to that. So a very fascinating saga is just getting started, I believe. And you may have seen as well Mark Few getting interviewed on this and passionately disagreeing with the NCAA's decision. We've talked about this with other schools before together, but a school with as much power as Gonzaga has in men's basketball, I tend to lean on the side of if they truly want to fight for this, they're going to figure out a way to get him eligible. But in the meantime, the rest of their roster, you know, like you talked about, I'm a little bit encouraged, actually. Like, obviously, the front court's elite with Huff and Ike. Certainly no qualms there. Jalen Warley is right there, ready to go, who has not played since 23-24 at Florida State. You know, sat last year out, basically. Also had time earlier in his career with Virginia. You have Adam Miller there in the backcourt with Braden Smith. I've heard really good things about the chances of Mario Saint-Superi, the Spanish-born freshman, of cracking the rotation and maybe even splitting minutes with Braden Smith. Now, it looks like in that last scrimmage they had, all the stats were publicly available that Braden Smith certainly played a bigger role and had a better game. But I'm also really encouraged that this Steel Venters hype that we've heard for 2 years after that great 2022-23 season he had at Eastern Washington, man, what a brutal injury he had, tearing his Achilles. It looks like he's finally like a very serviceable player. Davis Fogel, 4-star freshman, top 35, according to 247 Sports. He looks like a rotational 6-7 player. So again, obviously you want to enter the season with as much depth as you can possibly find in that 2 through 4 position, where I think Tyon can play all 3 of those positions. But even if they have to go for an extended period without him, I like this roster. For me, it doesn't change Gonzaga's outlook a whole lot. Obviously, it could make them a little bit scarier with some of the matchups, but Grant Foster's also had his issues a little bit on ball defending. Now he's a great anticipator and has high steal numbers and high block numbers. So you would miss that, but at the same time, he can get beat sometimes man to man. So I think Gonzaga's in good shape to win the WCC. That's my pick. I don't think they're elite enough to probably crack the top 4 seed lines. I've got them projected as a 6 seed. Sneak preview for my upcoming bracketology article coming out later this week.
Absolutely. With Gonzaga, I think that it is so valuable as well that they did have Braden Smith redshirt, a very, very rare voluntary redshirt. You don't find that very often. Jalen Worley was out for a year. You mentioned it, the Man of Steel, Steel Venters, he was out for 2 years. And how much do you think a team like a Gonzaga can really be a little bit of a surprise team? And I know that that sounds a little bit strange, but a lot of these guys that we just talked about, because they didn't play last year, I always use the phrase out of sight, out of mind. That's the best way to be able to describe them, in my opinion. And I think that they could sneak up on a lot of people that forgot what they were a few seasons ago.
Yeah, I agree. I think also one of the guys that came on at least one night that I was there was Ismailia Dion, who had to go into the game against Santa Clara due to foul trouble. And man, did he play lights out. He had 9 points in a short segment, really took the game out of the balance and helped Gonzaga win that game. And so again, I think he'll continue to mature. He's only a 7-foot sophomore with a ton of raw skills, learning under the Gonzaga system, that he's getting developed the right way for them. And you also still have, of course, Emmanuel Innocente, who's more of a 3 and 4 player, but again, really good depth at Gonzaga compared to what you might have thought a few weeks ago, even without Grant Foster. So I think this team's set up for success.
Absolutely, as we do have one of our good friends in Rocco Miller. He does such amazing work over at Bracketeer.org, joining me right here on Coast to Coast Hoops. And I'm so glad that you pointed out the exhibition result for Gonzaga and how much some of the other players were playing and just what you saw from that. And how much do you make out of these exhibition results? Because we're seeing a lot of these anti-air quotes here, secret scrimmage results, everything like that. And it makes it so interesting when you see some of those come out, because I know that there was rumor of a secret scrimmage that didn't actually happen between Rutgers and LaSalle, so now we're also getting into silly season as well. But that said, how do you take a look at these results and how much / little stock do you put into them?
Yeah, it's interesting. I used to be really, really skilled at never paying attention to them and just sticking with, all the stuff discussed in scheduling and roster turnover, et cetera, up until these charity exhibitions are basically coming into full force exhibition games where fans can buy tickets. It goes to NIL money. And with so many rosters turning over, I think you actually have to pay attention to them now just to see what roles guys are playing. Even if you don't learn that much, you can tell by reading the box scores you can get your hands on if a coach is really approaching it like a real game, or if they're approaching it like, hey, let's just get all 11 to 12 guys out there for 20 minutes or so each. And those ones you really can't take as seriously because they're really not identifying rotation and players that play optimally together quite yet. But some of these ones like Washington and UNLV, due to injury, they only played eight players for Washington, 7 for UNLV, virtually the whole game until about 2 minutes to go when Washington pulled away. But that was a really good look, I thought, at especially like Washington's freshman with Hannah Steinbach going off for 24 and 16. J.J. Mandequit got to play point guard the full role because Kamari Peterson's dinged up right now. and he was unbelievable with 12 assists. So examples like that are pretty cool because like Washington's just got like they're an example of a team that just has like 11 amazingly skilled players. Everybody's trying to guess what rotation will look like. That's still a guess, but at least we know some of the guys that really should be out there and have kind of earned their way in a situation like that. I think the ones where you just get the scores, Greg, and you're just kind of raising your eyebrow, like James Madison knocking off Liberty, or even Alcorn State beating North Alabama, Winthrop beating Charleston. That was also another one. It's just like we don't know the situations, right? Like we don't know if a couple guys sat out. We don't know if they managed a team differently. So like those, as much as I would love to put big stock into them, I simply can't. There's just no reason to. So yeah, and then you just hear little things here and there too. Like I talk to coaches throughout the day, so any little bits and pieces I can get that are valuable, I think you have to apply them. But I think I'm just as interested in what's going on behind the scenes at their practices on a day-to-day basis as I am in a exhibition result, just because so much of it is just like, what is this team actually going to look like when the lights are on for real?
Yep, and I think that is so well said by you, and I think that this is the way that I take a look at exhibition results. I'm not necessarily big on the final score and trying to be able to gauge that, but I am big on just how these guys are being utilized, just the way that these coaches go about it, because I think that there are some coaches that they are genuinely confused about what they have. They want to see what they have all got, and there are other coaches that, I am like for Purdue, for example, they know exactly who's going to be in their backcourt, and they could be using that exhibition to be able to give some guys some run that might not be seeing that run during the regular season.
Yeah, that's true. And the freshmen too, right? Like, so getting a chance to see the freshmen or seeing a guy like Steele Venters for Gonzaga who didn't get to play last year. How do they come back from injury? Are they actually ready? Also, like these rumors of guys being hurt, like, are they real? Magoon Gwath, I've been trying to warn everybody down at San Diego State. You probably saw they lost to UCLA. He won't be back until at least sometime in November. Could be the whole month. Just been cleared to do 5-on-0 drills. He can't even do 5-on-5 drills. That's a long, long recovery process for the big man who went through surgery in the springtime. And then you just have a lot of these other guys like across various levels of college basketball, similar situations where if they do become healthy and their full version of themselves, completely changes the trajectory of where that program might be heading this year. And on the flip side, if they can never get those guys on the court, if you're starting to grow more and more concerned about them, then you have to kind of start judging that book by its cover. Whatever they're doing now is probably similar to what they're going to be, in 2 months or whatever. So, yeah, I mean, without giving too many specific examples besides the San Diego State one, I think all of that's really important. I think so many of these teams as well, like I was looking at Arkansas State, I believe they just scrimmaged one of the Sun Belt teams. Was it South Alabama maybe? Could be off on that, but I haven't seen the box score. Like that's a team I'm fascinated by because I feel like he's got 9 to 11 really good players. No idea which rhyme or reason each guy's going to play. You're very extra curious on teams like that to see how it's going to shake out. Like we know Matt Heyman's going to play quite a bit. We know Chandler Jackson, a potential all Sun Belt player. Jalen Hampton and TJ Caldwell should also play, but like they have 5 freshmen. They have a bunch of guys who, didn't cut it at places like UT Arlington, San Diego, Sacramento State. That's just one example of a team that is got the upside to win a league. But we have zero idea what it's going to look like.
Yep, it is going to be really interesting to take a look at how some of these teams are going to be able to operate, and these scrimmage results, it does give us a little bit of insight into them as well, and I do think that it is a very good time of year to be able to just nail down these evaluations out there. We're less than 2 weeks away from the start of the college basketball season, as Rocco Miller does great work over at Bracketeer.org, also does a great job over at Basket Under Review and the Field of 68. He's joining me on Coast to Coast Hoops, and I think that this is a good stopping point for part number 1, and then in part number 2, I do want to get some of Rocco's thoughts on a few teams that he's starting to feel a little bit bullish/bearish on, with a little bit more injury information coming out with some of these exhibition results now known, as he changes tune on a few teams to the positive or the negative. We're also going to be diving in a little bit on the Big Ten and just what sort of a season they might have, as I do feel like the middle of the Big Ten is very strong. Rocco does as well. We'll be talking about that on the flip side right here on Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Peters, and now a part of the Beast and Family Podcast. Here, Lovey Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We are being rejoined by Rocco Miller. He does such an incredible job over at Bracketeer.org, taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of college basketball. This man is doing a little bit of everything. He's over at the Trilly Donovan website, Basket Under Review. He does the Field of 68's mid-major show along with Sean Paul as well. You can follow him on Twitter/X at Rocco Miller, the number 8 altogether. And Rocco, we were just talking about how much/little we make out of these exhibition results, and we were diving in just on the nooks and crannies of that. And now that we've got a little bit more information on these injuries, now that we've seen some of these exhibitions, this is both to the positive and the negative. Are there a few teams that you've changed your tune on, and maybe they've opened your eyes with regards to what we've seen here over the last few weeks?
On both ends, I would say on the mid-major space, first of all, I was really impressed. McNeese destroyed Tulane in an exhibition. Again, we don't know the circumstances of that result, but I did have the opportunity on the Field of 68 show to interview Javon Garcia. He's on our first team All-American for the mid-major level. That kid really impressed me just in the way he talked about the team. They have another really strong roster. Bill Armstrong used to be Will Wade's right-hand man at LSU before Will Wade was let go in a different era, even though it wasn't that long ago, because of reasons for paying players that wouldn't matter anymore. The fact of the matter is Bill's going to continue to run like basically the same system they ran before with Will. It was so comfortable to stay for Javon Garcia. I think that really impressed me. They also were able to recruit one of the best, probably true freshmen anywhere in mid-major basketball as they bring in Larry Johnson. Started at Creighton but left before the season. So he's a pretty big-time recruit for the McNeese level. And he's a year older. I guess he can leap out of the gym. People are going gaga over this guy. And on top of that, DJ Richards came back with Javon. So you got two proven commodities in the backcourt, plus Larry Johnson, who's just got oozles of talent. And they've got a really nice front court with, Jarrell Colbert will be their senior. That's played a little bit at the SMU level most recently. And Gary Dual, as you know, is a Big East level guy that played a lot for Seton Hall. McNeese is freaking filthy still. Let's not kid ourselves. And they do have a goal to go undefeated because they still haven't done that in the Southland. They want to run the table. I'm skeptical if they can because I actually think the rest of the Southland's getting better as well. But the fact that they have that as their goal, and I think they have T-shirts that say that, kind of encouraged me to bump them about 6 spots in the poll. There's just little things like that can move the needle for me. I also heard some different stories, like Jacksonville State really, really loves their group. I was there. It was a digital experience, but I was there for Conference USA Media Day, hearing Ray Harper and also just having a ton of respect for Ray Harper. Extremely high on their new point guard. He comes over in the transfer portal. The quotes that Ray Harper had about him kind of blew me away. And I'm talking about Jay Nash from Tulsa, who really didn't get to see the floor too much at Tulsa. He's now a sophomore. But he basically said that this guy runs the point guard position better than anybody I've ever coached. And again, you got to keep in mind, Ray Harper's been around like 20 years. If he doesn't lead Conference USA in assists this year, then they're missing way too many open shots. So he's basically predicting that Jay Nash will lead Conference USA in assists. And that's the kind of stuff I'm looking for in these interviews, because if you look at Jay Nash's numbers, you would have zero clue that that's a possibility. Our good friend Jim Root does an amazing job with this spreadsheet that a lot of us use for roster tracking. And again, it's from the summer, but Jay Nash wasn't even projected as a starter for Jim's tracking. And so there's so many of these underground stories that I'm all about, who's going to be the best teammates, who's got the best kids. We know who the best coaches are, either emerging or proven. And so, I bumped up Jacksonville State about 6 spots after that day. And there's just these little things you pick up along the way, but those two for sure. I think on the high major side, one team you kind of have to take a little more seriously is Nebraska. They are a great home court team, and again, exhibition games or whatever, but they did beat BYU, who everybody knows is a top 10 payroll team in college basketball, maybe even top 5. So just to be able to have the horses and the game that Rink Mast had, if you see his box score with 29 points and a ton of rebounds and great assist numbers, I was like, okay, Nebraska's at least a bubble team. I don't put them all the way in the field yet, but they're really close to the cut after that performance. The biggest thing for Nebraska always is, can they win on the road? And we still have no idea about that, because that game was in Lincoln. But that certainly raised eyebrows. I was impressed that Miami, even though I don't have a lot of information on it, was able to take out South Florida in a scrimmage. At least shows Miami, since they're all new, that's a team I'm really trying to learn more about. I also think TCU just blasting Tarleton by like 40. I was already high on TCU. It really helped solidify TCU as a projected tournament team for me. Those three for sure stood out just in the recent few days.
Yep, and I do think that there's a lot of teams that are just of intrigue in general right now, and there are some teams that they're showing some new wrinkles, and I do think that that makes things to be very interesting for this upcoming college basketball season. I am so glad that you mentioned Nebraska, because that's a team that I do think that there's a little bit of upside with another guy that was out of sight, out of mind in Rink Mass, and I think that that entire just middle of the Big Ten, like how will Ben McCollum and Iowa do? Can Wisconsin duplicate what they did from last year with regards to their offensive production? I'm pretty high on Washington. I think that they're in for a relatively solid year as well. It just feels like there's a lot of solid out there in the Big Ten. Obviously, Michigan and Purdue are catching all the attention, and then Illinois and UCLA are like fringe top 10 teams, but I look at this Big Ten and I think it could be a massive year for that conference.
I think 16 of the 18 teams have a ton of quality. I'm not sold on Rutgers or Penn State, but the other 16.
Yeah, Penn State is going to be rough.
Yeah, it's just a lack of resources compared to the teams they're up against. They're probably still good enough to be top 100, so it's still like a high floor for the league. But I do think like Minnesota is extremely encouraging. They looked really good. I think they hammered North Dakota State. Just compared to what Minnesota was before, you can already tell they've leveled up with Nico Medved and some of the players. With Cade Tyson had 28 points in their exhibition game. That's a really good sign for him. I think him playing for Nico Medved, for example, is a huge upgrade. And nothing against Hubert Davis, but I just think Nico is going to be able to continually put him in great positions to take high percentage shots, run really good stuff. That's a guy that's for sure going to benefit from playing there. I'm not sure how close Minnesota can get to the bubble. Again, all these teams, it's all predicated on being able to win on the road. But you look at Oregon and Washington, like going two different directions, but probably still in a position to be on the right side of the bubble. We'll see on the Jackson Shellstad injury. USC is really difficult to evaluate because with all three of those teams, Washington, Oregon, USC, they have to make 4 road trips at least to the East Coast or Central Time Zone. Those are very difficult trips, and their counterparts in the Big Ten all make 1 West Coast trip. So they have to go 4 times the amount of times out to the East, and they also have to go East for the conference tournament, which is in Chicago this year. As a forecaster, you have to factor in some extra losses there because there's just going to be a couple of nights where all 3 of those teams are not going to be themselves because of the jet lag there. Trying to account for all that, but then also, can they be really great home teams? If they can be really great home teams, it might be just enough to have a high net. Washington, obviously, unbelievable talent, so we'll see if they can blow some teams out on their home floor. It'd be great to get that place rocking again like it was back in my heyday. And then I'm sold on Iowa. I'm actually sold on Indiana finding a way to the tournament. Like, obviously, Tucker DeVries needs to stay healthy, but I love Wilkerson. I love a lot of the pieces that the Hoosiers added. I think Darian DeVries is a very underrated coach. He's elite, and his staff is elite at a transition denial defense. I think last year at West Virginia, like the whole season, they were number 1 in the country in slowing down transition. So when they play really fast teams, they're going to be extremely annoying to play against. And I think they can score offensively with the best of the best in the conference. I think Michigan State's going to be fine. Like, they'll rebound really well. Maybe not as much scoring as you would like, but they should be a very safe tournament team. So fascinating. A couple of these teams are going to have to choke compared to where they're at preseason. So I think maybe it's USC and Ohio State that choke just based on some variables within those programs. But I could be way off. It could easily be Washington, Oregon, Iowa. Any of those teams could choke. But I do think the league's good for 10 bids. I probably should have put 11 in, and you can make an argument for up to 12.
Yep, it is going to be a lot of fun out there in the Big Ten. Myself being someone from the great state of Wisconsin, we welcomed you in Rocco because I know that you're a man out there in the great state of Washington. I know you've been along for the ride for the Seattle Mariners postseason run as well, and you're doing such an incredible job getting set for the upcoming college basketball season. I know you've got a jam-packed schedule here the next few weeks before you're going to be viewing so many games. So love to get people at home know what's all on tap for you and how people are able to follow along on social media and other platforms. Mariners.
Go Mariners. Yeah, so I appreciate that, Greg. I can be found at bracketeer.org. As I hinted at earlier, the bracket is done for the preseason. It's been, I know, 7 months of work on that over scheduling and obviously observations, news, and notes. Finally ready to put that out there, so you'll see that this week. Basket under review, a couple of cool items coming. We have a full piece on the Mountain West. Ideally, that gets out by Wednesday of this week. That would be the 22nd. I will be traveling to Las Vegas Wednesday night for Mountain West and WCC Media Day all day Thursday. So stay tuned to my Twitter account at RoccoMiller8 for all that great coverage. And we'll also probably factor that back into the Basket Under Review umbrella at some capacity. And also coming to Basket Under Review will be an exclusive interview I'm having with the Horizon League departing commissioner, Julie DeRoche. She actually stepped down last week to become the EVP of Pacers Entertainment. So we're going to talk to her all about that, but also she really wanted to talk about the state of the Horizon League. Should be a really cool interview. That's coming in the next week as well. And then outside of that, Field of 68 mid-major show. We've had a couple of episodes so far. That will come back a week from Thursday, and I believe that is the 30th of October. That last show before the season starts, we're going to be breaking down all the biggest matchups in mid-major basketball and taking chat questions there. That's myself and Vince Wolfram and Sean Paul. Excited about all those things.
Absolutely. Rocco is doing such an amazing job. You just heard it. He is stuffing the stat sheet in terms of taking a look at a bit of everything. He's on like 57 different platforms. He does all the scheduling. Somehow, some way, he's able to keep up with Seattle Mariners baseball along the way as well. A man of very many talents. A big thanks to Rocco for joining me right here on Coast to Coast Hoops, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. And if you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Coast to Coast Hoops, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of two ways we all fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, LRCM, naming does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. And then from there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review, and I am with you guys every single day during the regular season and the off season. We're up to over 2,150 straight days without a missed podcast, so it is an Ironman streak unlike any other, and trust me, we are going to do everything humanly possible to make you guys profitable and get you guys some winners this year in 2 weeks when those games return on that Monday. That starts picks and analysis on every single game, every single day, and in the meantime, I've done conference previews for all 31 conferences. Now, obviously, some of the roster moves have happened past that because hard to be able to do 31 conference previews at the same time, but if you're looking on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, list goes on and on, you go down the list of shows, they are all there for you guys, so we've got you guys set there, and I wanted to do those conference previews so that way they could be as evergreen as humanly possible, even with the changing landscape of college basketball. So I appreciate you tuning in today, and I will be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.